Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlyn Clark.
The sports world is currently humming with a pressure that has been building for months. And if you have been paying attention to the relentless alarms coming from Stephen A. Smith, you already know the clock has started, because the year 2026 is rapidly shaping up to be the most pivotal turning point in the history of the WNBA. This is not another social media rumor or a throwaway hot take designed to farm clicks. This is a calculated business forecast and a professional reality check that points directly to the end of Caitlyn Clark's tenure in a league that has struggled to protect and properly value its biggest draw. The confirmation that 2026 could be her final season is sending a ripple of anxiety through front offices across the league, while simultaneously validating everything Stephen A. Smith has been warning about since draft night. We are staring at a moment where the most powerful economic force women's basketball has ever produced is preparing to walk away. And the reasons are as obvious as they are frustrating. This is a story about jealousy, mismanagement, and a business model so flawed it is practically pushing its own superstar toward the exit. Stephen A. Smith has been the loudest voice reminding everyone that you cannot keep swinging at the golden goose and expect it to stay. The pattern is clear, and the evidence keeps stacking up that a combination of an outdated salary structure, nightly physical targeting, and the emergence of a lucrative alternative league has created a perfect storm for a 2026 departure. When you line up the timeline, it fits perfectly with the end of her rookie obligations and the moment she gains the freedom to make a decision that prioritizes her health and her earning power over loyalty to a league that has given her very little protection. Stephen A. Smith has stressed that this is not about weakness. It is about intelligence. Why would a global icon generating millions continue to accept a workplace where she is underpaid and undervalued? The answer is simple. She won't. And Stephen A. Smith is making it clear that the message could not be louder. The writing is already on the wall. And if nothing changes, 2026 will mark the moment league watches its brightest star walk away. The financial gap alone is enough to make any rational professional start planning an exit. And Stephen A. Smith has been drilling this reality into the conversation with relentless clarity. We are talking about a player who is arguably the most visible and marketable female athlete on the planet right now, earning a base salary that barely scratches the surface of her actual value. While arenas sell out, television ratings surge, and merchandise flies off the shelves, Caitlyn Clark is being compensated at a level that does not reflect the empire she is helping build for the WNBA. When you compare her base pay to what mascots, bench players, and mid-tier talents earn in the NBA, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. And that contrast is not just symbolic. It is a flashing warning sign that the system is not designed to reward the star who is carrying it forward. Stephen A. Smith has repeatedly pointed out that Clark's off-court earnings dwarf anything the league itself provides. Multi-million-dollar endorsement deals, long-term brand partnerships, and global recognition have elevated her into a financial tier that exists completely outside the WNBA structure. When you stack that reality against a salary that would not cover the lifestyle expectations placed upon her as a global star, the equation becomes brutally simple. She is taking on risk, absorbing physical punishment, and carrying the pressure of an entire sport for compensation that does not match the danger. And once the novelty of being a rookie fades and the business side takes control, decisions begin to change. By the time 2026 arrives, that emotional attachment to the league will be replaced by strategic thinking, and that is exactly the moment Stephen A. Smith has been warning about. But money is only the surface layer. The deeper force driving this looming departure is the emergence of a powerful alternative that is rewriting the rules of how elite female athletes can monetize their talent. The new rival structure, led by star players themselves, is introducing a model that the WNBA simply cannot match. Ownership equity, shorter seasons, higher pay, and greater control over branding are all being placed on the table. For an athlete like Caitlyn Clark, this is not just another league. It is a complete redefinition of her role in the sport. Instead of being an employee, she becomes a stakeholder. Instead of being scheduled, she becomes a decision maker. And that shift in power changes everything. Stephen A. Smith has emphasized that this is the ultimate leverage scenario. If the WNBA does not radically evolve its compensation model and its treatment of star players, Clark has a clear and profitable alternative waiting for her. A shorter season with fewer games means less physical wear. A higher salary means greater financial security. Equity means long-term wealth that continues to grow even after her playing days are over. And the ability to control her own image means she can build a brand that exists beyond the confines of a single league. When you look at those options side by side, the traditional WNBA structure begins to look outdated and unsustainable, and then there is the emotional environment that has surrounded her since the day she stepped into the league. Instead of being embraced as a generational talent who could elevate everyone around her, she has been met with resistance, skepticism, and at times outright hostility. Stephen A. Smith has not shied away from describing this culture as toxic. Instead of celebrating the attention, revenue, and opportunities she brings, certain segments of the veteran core have treated her like a threat that needs to be contained. Hard fouls, aggressive play, and visible frustration have become part of the weekly storyline. And while physical basketball is part of the sport, there is a line between competition and targeting. Many observers believe that line has been crossed more than once. This kind of environment creates a long-term psychological toll. When an athlete begins to feel that her own league does not fully support her safety or appreciate her impact, the motivation to stay begins to erode. Stephen A. Smith has highlighted how important internal culture is to retaining star talent. If the locker room energy is negative, if the leadership voices are dismissive, and if the overall atmosphere feels hostile, even the most dedicated player will eventually begin to consider other options. By 2026, Clark will have spent multiple seasons navigating that tension, and the patience required to endure it will not last forever. The physical element only amplifies that pressure. Every drive to the basket, every contested rebound, every collision in the paint carries a risk that extends beyond a single game. A serious injury at the wrong time could alter her entire career trajectory. And when that risk is paired with a salary that does not reflect her market value, the logic becomes even more clear. Stephen A. Smith has asked the question repeatedly: why should a global icon risk her long-term health for compensation that does not match the danger? That question becomes louder with every hard fall and every missed call. At the same time, the league's reliance on her star power has never been more obvious. Ticket demand spikes wherever she plays. Television numbers jump when she is featured. Sponsorship deals gain value because of her presence. She is not just a player within the system. She is a central pillar of the system itself. And when a single athlete becomes that essential to the financial ecosystem of a league, the balance of power begins to shift. The player gains leverage. The league becomes dependent. And once that dependency reaches a certain level, the athlete has the freedom to decide her own path. That is the crossroads the WNBA is approaching. And Stephen A. Smith has made it clear that time is running out to fix it. The economic reality surrounding Caitlyn Clark's presence in the WNBA is no longer a matter of opinion. It is measurable, visible, and impossible to deny. Attendance figures rise dramatically when she is in the building. Broadcast partners prioritize her games because they know viewers are tuning in specifically to watch her. Merchandise sales follow her name. The ripple effect touches every corner of the league's business model. And yet, despite being the primary driver of that surge, she is still operating within a compensation structure that does not acknowledge her true value. Stephen A. Smith has described this imbalance as one of the most unsustainable business models in professional sports today. When a league depends on a single figure to generate its largest spikes in revenue and attention, that player inevitably becomes the focal point of its long-term strategy. But the WNBA's current structure still leans heavily on traditional systems that prioritize collective stability over individual star power. That approach may have worked in earlier eras, but in the modern sports landscape, fans follow personalities. They connect with individual journeys. They invest emotionally in the stories of athletes, not just the logos on the jerseys. Caitlyn Clark represents that new era, and if the league fails to adapt to it, the consequences will be significant. Stephen A. Smith has repeatedly warned that if Clark decides to leave, the decline in viewership, ticket sales, and sponsorship interest will be immediate. The networks that are negotiating high-value media rights deals are doing so because of the excitement and attention she brings. Remove that central attraction, and the value of those deals drops. The WNBA understands this, and that understanding is what makes the current situation so urgent. It is not just about retaining one player. It is about protecting the economic momentum the league has finally started to build, but from Clark's perspective, the equation looks very different. She is not tied to the league in the same way the league is tied to her. Her brand exists on a global scale. Her endorsements reach audiences far beyond the WNBA fan base. Her influence stretches into corporate partnerships, media opportunities, and international markets. If she steps away from the league, her platform does not disappear. It simply shifts. And that shift could actually strengthen her long-term earning potential by allowing her to control her schedule, manage her health, and choose opportunities that align with her personal brand. Stephen A. Smith has compared this situation to the evolution of star power in other major sports leagues. In the NBA, the realization that individual athletes could drive massive revenue streams led to a shift in how stars were marketed and protected. The league built its identity around its biggest names and ensured they were positioned as the centerpiece of its product. The WNBA, however, has been slower to make that transition. There is still a reluctance to fully embrace a single player as the face of the league. That hesitation is costing them time, and time is the one resource they do not have. The emotional component of this story continues to play a significant role as well. When fans watch games and see unnecessary physicality, questionable officiating decisions, and visible frustration directed toward Clark, it shapes their perception of the league. Instead of seeing a rising star being celebrated, they see a talent being challenged in ways that feel excessive. That perception matters because it influences how audiences connect with the product. If the narrative becomes one of mistreatment rather than celebration, it undermines the league's ability to build a positive and inspiring image. Stephen A. Smith has also highlighted the long-term implications for younger athletes watching this unfold. Future prospects are paying attention to how Clark is being treated. They are observing how the league responds to her success. They are evaluating whether this is an environment where their own talents will be nurtured or challenged in ways that feel unfair. The decisions made over the next few seasons will shape the perception of the WNBA for an entire generation of players who are deciding where to invest their careers. At the same time, Clark's own career timeline is moving forward. Athletic primes are limited. Opportunities to maximize earnings and build long-term wealth do not last forever. The choice she makes in 2026 will not be based on emotion alone. It will be based on data, risk assessment, and strategic planning. If the numbers show that she can achieve greater financial security, better health outcomes, and more control over her brand outside the WNBA structure, the decision becomes straightforward. That is the reality Stephen A. Smith has been outlining from the very beginning. The league still has an opportunity to change this trajectory. Adjusting the collective bargaining agreement, improving player safety protocols, and embracing star-focused marketing could shift the balance. But those changes require decisive action, and they require it quickly. Every season that passes without meaningful reform brings the league closer to the moment when Clark's departure becomes inevitable rather than hypothetical. As we move closer to 2026, the tension continues to build. Fans are watching. Sponsors are evaluating. Media partners are calculating their investments. And at the center of it all is Caitlyn Clark, holding the leverage that comes with being the most influential figure in the sport. Stephen A. Smith has framed it as a simple equation: if the league evolves, it keeps its star. If it resists, it loses her. And if it loses her, the impact will be felt across every aspect of the organization. This is not just a story about one player's potential decision. It is a defining moment for the future of women's professional basketball. The next few years will determine whether the WNBA can adapt to the realities of modern sports economics or whether it will watch its brightest star build her legacy somewhere else. The countdown is no longer theoretical. It is happening in real time. And every game, every contract discussion, and every public statement is another step toward that final decision. This timeline confirmation changes the entire equation. It places the league on alert. It places the audience on alert. And it places every corporate partner on alert. Everyone is now bracing for a post-2026 reality where Caitlyn Clark is building her own empire outside the WNBA. The league will be forced to prove it can survive without its main engine of growth, and Stephen A. Smith has made it clear he doubts that outcome. The numbers will dip, the seats will empty, and the spotlight will fade. It will be a brutal wake-up call.